Hey guys, Katie Heller here with Kids Can Read and Write. Today I want to help you with the I before E except after C rule. Does this rule even work? Some people say yes, some people say no, there are too many exceptions. Well, let me tell you when this rule can really come in handy. I'm seeing a lot of kids coming home with crazy spelling lists right now. I'm talking spelling lists where they have mixed all the different ways to make the same sound on one list. So when you hear E in a word, maybe it's a double E combination, or maybe it's an EA combination, or maybe it's another like E, the IE combination, or maybe it's some other version of how to say E, a Y ending, an IE ending, like all these crazy ways on one list. Well, if your child's getting confused when to say E with the IE and when to say E with the EI, that's when this rule can really help. So let's talk about what even the rule is. So I before E. That's saying that usually when you're hearing that E sound in a word where it's the E and I making it, that you want to actually put the I before the E except after a C. Notice how they're switched back EI. Well, why is this a rule? This is a rule that people have come up with because usually when we have two vowels together and the first one is saying its name, you'll hear like the E sound, right? You'll hear the first one say its name and the second not say anything. But with the EI, we flip them. And it's the second one saying its name, even though normally the first one would. So this can be confusing on a number of levels for kids because if you've been teaching, two vowels go walking, first one does the talking, second goes to sleep. Suddenly they're trying to read this and they're going pies, pies. Nope, that's not pies, it's peace. Well, you told me the first one should say its name. Yes, but it's the second one in peace. Why? Well, I always like to tell kids that I want to bet against E. And so I gets to go first, but E has to do all the work, okay? So that's the I before E except after C. So the only thing was if C was there, E could go first. That's the only time he was still allowed to go first. So I won the bet with E, so I gets to go first, but E has to do all the work. So I before E unless it's after a C. So that can help your kids kind of straighten out the words, when to put IE, when to put EI, when they hear that E sound. It's only when it's saying E. I see some things like with weird exception words, but they're not actually saying E. They're not exception words, okay? So let's take a look at these words. Let's read them together, and let's see how this is working. So remember, IE can say E like in this word, E, and then here's that CE trick where C pokes E, I, or Y and goes S. So you have to know that too to read this word. So two things, you have to know that IE is actually going to be the second one doing all the work because I won that bet. So we have E, S, piece. Now what kind of piece is this? This is like a piece of pie. And I like to show kids, see how the word pie is in it? Because remember, normally when two vowels are together, the first one will say its name and the second one will go to sleep or just listen to the first one. That would make pie, right? But in this word, it's saying E. But I like to tell people the piece that starts with pie is like a piece of pie, a little bit of that pie, okay? So the one that starts like pie, piece, is the individual slice or a part of it, okay? A piece of it. But notice that's saying E, not I. We take that away, now it's saying pie, pie. So this is not something like every IE says E. This is, sometimes we use IE to say E. And this is what makes English so confusing for people to learn, because you have to be very flexible with it. All right, so let's see. If we read this with two vowels and we say the first one says its name, the second goes to sleep, let's see, or the second one just listens, let's see what it would be. B-L-I-V, belive. But that doesn't sound right. Maybe this is where it's saying E. Believe, believe, yes. Now, with your kids, if this is on a spelling test, one, they have to know, but E is B. It's not just a B. A lot of kids who struggle with spelling will just put that B because when they sound it out, believe, they hear B, leave. So they'll just write the B, but not the E. Get it? B, leave, okay? So even if they remember, oh, here's one of those I before E, except after C ones, we put the IE in believe. That's what's saying the E sound. You have to memorize that because it's not an E, it's not EA, it's not our usual E sound. I before E, except after C. And then you might ask, well, why is this here? Why did they put that E? They already have it saying E. Why do they need a sleepy E at the end? And that goes back to that rule. You're not allowed to end a word with V in English. So you'll notice have, give, believe, achieve, receive. They all have that E at the end because you're not supposed to end a word with a V. So most words that have that V sound at the end will also have that E. So that's another thing to tell your child to make it easier to spell words like believe or receive, right? What about this one? First, let's learn how to read it. If we're reading it and we do our CH, that's a trick. It's the ch trick. Ch. And let's say we don't know if this is the I before E except after C, or if it's the two vowels, we might read it ch, I've, chife. That doesn't sound like a word. It's really the I before E except after C, where I won the bet, E does all the work. So here we have ch, eef, chief. So just know if you come across an IE word, it might be saying I or it might be saying E. This rule helps when you're spelling and you know that it's an EI or IE combination, but you don't know which way to put it, okay? The only reason this rule is helpful is if you're trying to learn your E spellings and you have EI and IE words and you're trying to figure out which one has which, okay? And then it works great because then you're like, oh, I want to spell chief. Cha, put CH. E, I remember it. Is it IE or EI? Oh, I before E except after C. Now, here's a C, but this is coming after the H, so it doesn't count as the except part of it. We're going to put the I before the E, okay? So it's only if this C is right in front of it. So that's chief, and what's this one? We have our T and the H, the T's pointing, the train is coming, or shoo, I thought the train was coming. We have our th, and then our IE saying E, and our thief. But it might look like thief to your beginning readers because they've been told, you know, usually the first one says its name, and sometimes it does, okay? So you have to teach them to be a little flexible. Oh, try it. If it's not thief, try it the other way. See if the other vowel is saying its name. Thief. Oh yeah, I've heard of that, right? So we have peace, believe, chief, and thief with the I before the E. Now let's look at some where it is the except after C, okay? And remember, I won the bet against E, so I gets to go first, but E does all the work. He has to say his name still. All right, and this one, except after C. Now, when we have it after C, that C-E-C-I-C-Y rule goes into effect, and we have the S. The C is going to make that S sound, and then the E shouts out whatever it was already doing in the word, which is saying its name because of the two vowels trick. So the E will say his name again. So we have E, re, or you could go Eve, receive, or you could say receive. It really doesn't matter. Receive, as long as you're kind of close there, it doesn't really matter. But you do want to help your kids learn to spell this, so I like emphasizing re, and then doing the eve. And make sure they know that's the E and I together there. And why do we have this E at the end? Do you remember? Because you're not allowed to end a word with V. So we have to add that E on too. These are things you need to keep telling your kids and reminding them about. If they have memory issues, processing issues, it's going to be hard for them to learn to spell. Does that mean impossible? No. Does it mean you have to work at it? Most likely. So just know it may take a while. It may take a lot of repetition. They might forget it the very next day. You might have to remind them all over again. But I want to tell you, the more you remind them and go back over it in a loving, supportive way, the sooner they're going to start remembering it and the better time they're going to have of learning with you. So remember your patience when you are teaching spelling. This is a lot for kids who are just struggling to come up with the proper sounds even. They're working 10 times as hard as most, and now they're having to learn all these exceptions and quiet letters and weird things. They're having to really work on hearing it and remembering all the tricks and writing neatly and. It's a lot going on. So just because it's easy for you to remember doesn't mean it's easy for a child with memory or processing issues to remember. So if your child has dyslexia and learns and forgets, please be patient with them. The more they practice, the sooner they will get to that point where they can remember it. But it takes a lot of practice. They're not a one and done, right? Unless they have a great memory, you could go over these and think they will never get it. But I promise you, if you don't give up and you keep working on it and you keep helping them remember how to remember it, how to think about it, how to hear it in their head while they sound it out, that will make the difference, and eventually you will succeed. So don't give up. All right, what about this word? Here's that E-I. Now remember, when the C pokes at E or I, it says S. And that's when the E shouts out whatever it was saying in the word. Okay, so here it was acting as two vowels. It's going to say E. Notice we keep the E before the I because it's after the C. It's actually because it's a different trick, right? But we help kids just piece it together by I before E except after C. It's just a cute way of remembering I-E unless it's right after C and then E-I. So E, re, or red, either way will work. S, E. Now look at this, receipt. Can you say that? Receipt. It is hard to say. So what do we actually say? Receipt. But notice how hard this is going to be for your child to remember that P. When you say receipt, now they have to remember the E and the I are saying the E. The C is saying the S, which should be an S, right? It sounds like an S to them. So they're having to remember all sorts of things. Re is a C, E is a EI. There's a crazy silent P in it. and then you have that t ending. It's no wonder kids get frustrated with spelling and don't want to do it. It's hard. It's a big challenge. So remember that when you're working with your kids. You have memorized it probably, you know, and you may think, oh, this is not that hard, like RECEIPT, like what's the big deal? But to your kids, they are having to remember that and that and that, plus the regular spelling structure and how to sound out words, and they're having to hold all of that in their mind while you're waiting for the correct answer. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever been on the side of somebody's waiting on you to answer something that's hard for you to do, it's nerve-wracking. You might blank out. You might forget what you're doing. You might get frustrated. You might want to cry. You might want to scream. You might want to leave. Whatever your reaction typically is, you'll probably want to do that. So just be patient with your kids. Help make it fun. Be understanding, be kind, all of those things, because it's a lot. It's a lot. And then to remember it the next day, that's even harder if you have a neat freak brain that loves to clean up stuff after you're done. So a lot of kids will get it and then promptly forget it. And what do? Go back over it, be kind. Don't worry about it. Just keep teaching it until it sticks. All right, let's look at this one. So here we have our C touching an E, I, or Y. So that's the S. Then we're going to have the E, I. Shout out the E's name because he's first in the two-vowel combination. S-E-O, ing. Then we have our ing trick. So again, knowing these tricks is crucial to your kids really learning how to spell, how to read, especially if they're dyslexic. This makes a difference. Like when you make it make sense, that's when kids with dyslexia start learning to read and start learning to spell. And then when you put in the repetition, that's what really does the magic. So if you're not seeing results, if you're still being confused, get a structured, explicit, systematic program to teach your kids. If you need help with that, I have the Black Belt Reading Program. It teaches everyone from first grade through later years. If you need more advanced packets, just make sure you let me know, because I have the first grade and kind of second grade, or if somebody's really struggling in third and can't read it all yet, it could work for them too. But I also have older, more advanced packets for those older kids. So just get in touch with me so I can get you in the right program. If you're not sure which one would be right, let me know and I'll show you, because this is what makes a difference. It's helping your kids understand why it says E here when we tell them two vowels go walking. The first one says its name, the second goes to sleep. Why it says E here with that E there, and why C's are saying S here, and why ing says ing, not in, and why, just all these crazy things going on that you probably don't even know about, but you could learn about and then pass that knowledge on to your kids. Now, before we go, I want to talk to you about when this rule doesn't work. And there are some important times when you need to know it doesn't work and why. So it doesn't work with the word weird. And what do I tell kids? Well, weird is weird. It doesn't follow the rule. So instead of flipping and putting the I before E except after C, because that's a W, not a C, it's weird. It has a regular EI, okay? So I just tell kids, weird is weird. It sticks with EI. Now, it also doesn't work for the EIGH rules like weigh or eight. That's a different trick. That's the EIGH rule. That's the A plus hiding spot rule, okay? And if you need help with that, let me know. If you need me to make a video on that, let me know. but no, that it won't work with the GH. It also will not apply when there's an IES ending. Okay, so that's like cries, tries, or at the end of longer words like bunnies, or I'm blanking out on IES endings right now, abnormalities. That's going to say E's, and the I's going to come before the E because it's an IES ending. So a lot of times people think they're exceptions when they're just different tricks. There are exceptions like protein, there are some others, but most of the words with the IE or EI follow this basic rule unless it's a different trick entirely. There are probably a handful that don't, there might be more, but the most common ones do. So again, when do you use this? You use this to help your kids figure out these words. Which ones have the EI, which ones have the IE. I before E except after C. And why is that? Because the C is a different trick. It's poking the EI, and the E is shouting out its name, when it gets scared by the C sounding like a snake. So it just helps your kids figure out a way to check themselves. So I hope this helps, guys. I hope you enjoyed learning about I before E except after C, and that's only when you're using the IE for that E sound, okay? Remember, if it's not saying E in the word, this trick does not apply to it. So, hope that helps. Let me know if you have questions or if you have other things that you want to know about. Maybe you don't understand a certain trick or something going on in words. Maybe you want to learn how to read a certain type of word. Let me know what that is. I'll do my best to help. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Don't forget to give that thumbs up. It really helps a lot, and it's so nice to know you're there and watching the content and enjoying it. I really appreciate it, and especially those of you who take the time to comment and tell me how I'm helping you or your kids. That really means so much to me. So even if I don't reply right away, I do read them, and I try to reply to everyone. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of the Kids Can Read and Write family. I hope you have a great day. Thanks again.